Hello Nextkast users and potential new users. Thank you for checking out this video. This video is going to cover advanced music scheduling with Nextkast. Now Nextkast has its music scheduler built into the automation. There is a separate utility that can run called NK Manager, so you can use it as a separate scheduler, but it's also conveniently placed in the main automation system, quite different than many other automation systems. Also want to note that these procedures and things that I'm going to mention in this video were developed over the past 10 years talking to the top PDs in many large market radio station audiences. We interacted with a lot of large multi-station groups, and we found that there is a minimum set of rules or a minimal set of rules that you can apply to your music library and get the best results. In addition, we've added some new features in our music scheduling that helps you improve that even more. That is our category health screen you see here on the right with the green thumbs up. So anyway, this video might be longer than most of our videos because we're going to cover a lot of ground. But we feel it's important for you to know the power of the music scheduling available in Nextkast. So we'll get started. Okay, we're first going to cover how to create a category. A category is essentially a folder or a categorized list of tracks that have similar traits. So in this example, for instance, I have my classic tracks. Those are older tracks. I have my high, which I basically, you could relabel that as like popular recurrence. And then I break down some of the recent years so that I kind of can put those into my rotations or clocks. Also have an instrumental category. So I wanted to show you how to create these categories and add the music to them. So to create a new category, we're going to hit the plus here and we'll be confronted with this dialog. We're going to dictate what type of music or assets we're entering into the system. So obviously we're going to do music for this particular demo, but it could also be commercial or talk elements, or also imaging, which is like your station drops, etc. So we're going to go ahead and create a music category, and I'm going to call it new music. And we can leave all this other information the same, and we're going to create a category. So when I've created my new music category, when I click on it here in the track list add music screen, you see that it's empty. So there's no tracks in there. So to add tracks, I'm going to go ahead and hit the big plus sign here, go to my desktop, and go to my folder of new music. And I'm going to go ahead and grab all these, and I'm going to select them. And so Nextkast currently imports those tracks. And so what it does is when it imports those, it verifies that they're playable through the playout engine. So if there's any corrupt tracks, that'll find them there and you'll get a little report. And it does some other stuff too. So it will take all the information from the tracks, the meta tags in the tracks if you're importing MP3s. Now, if you're importing WAV files, if there's a riff wave tag, it will also get that information as well and put them into the respective fields, in addition to even the cue points that are in some of the riffs that you can buy off the shelf. So quickly point out here, what you need to do for each of the tracks is make sure they're marked correctly and then update the tag. So for each of these tracks, you need to make sure that the artist and title are correct. You can change album name. The BPM will be there. One of the new features we added, which it looks like all my tracks have BPM, but I can click on the BPM label and it'll actually redetect the BPM. So it was pretty close to 128. We'll go ahead and leave it at 128. Yeah. And basically you'll have to do that for all the tracks. So I'll kind of go through one of the categories that I've already done, and you can kind of see all the songs here have at least the artist name and song title proper. You have some other information you can enter here. and I'll go over that in a second. So for these songs, you want to preview each song, and then you want to make sure to mark the intro until, and then if you would like, you can mark the next start. Now, keep in mind, our system does have something called auto trim, which will trim silence from the beginning and end of the track, and it will basically make your transitions very tight, depending on where you set this. So the lower you set it, the tighter it will get, but you got to make sure that your audio assets have a decent level on them. If their level is too low, if you set the auto trim too low, you run into problems. So anyway, so you don't have to mark the next start on all tracks. Some people who are extremely thorough will do that, and that's fine. But I'll quickly show you how to quickly mark it. There's two ways to mark a track. So I can basically just preview the song here, and then when I hear the intro until, which means where a jock can start or stop talking, I'll show you. Okay, so I mark it, and so basically that tells me that the jock can talk up until that intro until point. And then again, I can also mark the next start wherever the song ends if I want the next start to happen. Generally, I leave those empty because the auto trim and the audio engine does that pretty well, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. Again, it's very important to make sure all the tags of your tracks are marked properly for artist and title, because the separation rules require that those fields to be accurate. One other thing I'd like to point out here is multiple artists. So a lot of times an artist or a track will have two artists, and they may have the artist string as Bizarre Inc. Feat featuring Angie Brown. So what we have something called multiple artist extraction. So when a track has multiple artists, it will recognize that and separate them out. So you see the related artists is Bizarre Inc. and Angie Brown, and that it just pulled it from there. You didn't have to do that. That's going to save you a lot of time. As long as your songs are tagged properly, you'll see that it pulls out those multiple artists. You see it has David Guetta there, J.D. Davis, we have Delirium and Sarah McLachlan. So those are automatically related artists. You don't have to worry about entering that data. And of course, we have the song name, the album, and the song year for searching. That's helpful. If we go to the Q info tab, we have some other traits here. So if I click on the end type here, I can put no fade, which means that song will not fade out when the next start occurs. I can hit cold or fade. So cold and fade are basically just markings to let you know. But the no fade actually has functionality where it will prevent that song from fading out. There's also the key here where you can enter that, and BPM, obviously, where again you can detect the BPM by clicking the BPM label. Feature code, that will come up later, but you can create your own feature code. Now, this is kind of an advanced feature, and if you're not familiar with other high-end music schedulers, you may not be familiar with this method, but you would have to set your own feature code rules, and you can contact me if you have more questions about that. I'm not going to go too more in depth into that because it's not used that often, but if you know about it, I'll be glad to answer questions about that. Also, track weight. So the higher the value, the more often the track will play. So if you set a value of 5, that means it will get higher up in the list and play more often than any other track. Now, keep in mind, when you set that, you're going to have to remember which ones you set higher and set them back because they will play much more often. But it can be helpful if you're trying to push a song in a category. That song can get picked much more often, and you can just put it back to 0. Keep in mind, whenever you make a change here, you'll see the yellow background in the text box. And then whenever you update tag, it'll turn back to gray. And so that is helpful to know that it's saved. Now, gender and tempo. I actually put a note here in the new version of the software, but let me just articulate that here in words. This is a very simplified method of separating these two types. What I recommend is whenever most people do not want two females back to back. Don't ask me why, but that's what everyone tells me. So I guess it depends on the format. But you only want to mark the types that you do not want the tracks to play back to back. It's a very simple algorithm. So if I hit female and slow, Nextkast will not pick either this as a female back-to-back or a slow song back-to-back. So again, slightly advanced features, and a lot of times you can alleviate the need for this by just setting up your categories for slow songs or female. But again, if you don't want to do that, you can put that within the category. Also, more information here. You can put more information into the data of the track. You can put comments. Those comments will be shown to voice trackers. So if they're voice tracking, they could see the comments about the song and use that for information when talking, the transitions of those songs. Now, time restrictions, basically you can set a date to and from. Please make sure when you do set the to and from date that you set it to and also, from and to. So you got to make sure you set both. And then it will only be allowed to be picked between those two dates. Also, if you want only this song to play during weekdays, you can click here on, I'm going to go ahead and reset that. You can click on any of these squares here, and then I can set it to only play certain times of the day. So if it's a song that you just want picked at night, you can do that. But remember, you got to fill in all the squares where it's allowed to be picked. If nothing is selected, it will always play whenever you want it to. Whatever time of day. As soon as you click one of these squares, it's going to restrict the behavior to only play those hours, and it will not pick out of those hours, or again, from date and to date. Those are the things you can set. So that's kind of like the basic overview of what needs to be set for each track. It's a lot of work to be done properly, but once you put this information and you have all this set properly, then things are going to be a lot easier and the scheduler is going to do a lot better job. So it's one of the core basic necessities to professional radio programming with Nextkast. Okay, once I've added all my music and my categories into Nextkast, the next thing we're going to do and talk about is creating rotations. Rotations, and that is going to be found under the playlist rotation screen. And then here on the bottom, I'm going to click new rotation. And I'll show you how to create one from scratch. So, and I'll kind of click here so you can see the clock. So, of course, we're going to and you can double click here and it'll just add it into the schedule there, right? So again, what we're doing is creating a clock, and then I'll go over some details here about what clocks you should create and how you should format them. So we're going to do top of the hour, and then we're going to do power, and then, okay. And then I'm going to do, let's see, do we have any commercials here? Pre-commercial. And then commercials, okay? And then I can do, now if you're doing traffic, external traffic merging, you don't have to worry about this. This is mainly for if you're not using traffic, external traffic programmer, like Natural Log or Marketron or any of the others. But okay, so, and then we're gonna go ahead and do our classic drop, which is kind of an intro to our classic track. And then we can go back and do a high. Again, not putting a lot of thought into here because I just want to kind of show you how this would work. But, and then maybe we want to do some imaging, a phone call. Okay, we can kind of just fill this in. Okay. And let's see, station drop. We're going to do new music. I'm just haphazardly entering these categories. Again, the method that you use here is going to be highly up to the individual. So if you know how to program an hour, you know what flow the music has to be, you kind of get the general idea of how this works. One thing I will note is you want the rotation or the clock to run at least 1 hour and 10 minutes. Those tracks that are overscheduled will not often play, but at least in case you have short tracks in your other categories, you're going to want to make it at least an hour and 10 minutes. I'm actually going to delete a couple of these because I wanted to show you something here. So I'm going to do some more power, because power is going to happen much more often in the hour. And we'll kind of do that. Okay. So what you'll notice is when I click here on my power category, I have a grid come up there on the bottom. And that kind of shows me how the spacing of that category is going to play throughout the day. The estimated song separation, as you can see here on top, is 11.7 hours. Again, my power category is very wide. I have a lot of tracks in there. For most people, it's going to be a whole lot less, but you'll get the same data. Now, I want you to notice something. I'm going to drag another power category in and look at it again. You'll see the grid changed a little bit. So you can delete and add categories to the clock to kind of get this grid to spread out as nicely as possible. You want it to be offset. So if I go ahead and delete this category here, and then I look at it again, you kind of want it to look like that. That's going to give you the best dispersion for that category for that clock. Another thing you can do, which I've actually almost never talked about, is you can filter every element and every position in a clock. You can tell it what you want that specific sub-filter to be. So I can say that I want that to be a medium, I want the gender to be male, the genre, club mix, and then if I had features entered, I could use that there. So for each position in a rotation, you can have sub-filters. Now keep in mind, when you add sub-filters, the more you do, the tighter your music library is going to become. So I generally don't recommend this, but for some power schedulers, they may want to create a flow in the hour. And that's a great way to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and name this new rotation and save it. And then when my rotation gets saved, you'll see it here on the bottom, and I can go ahead and click it if I want to edit it. And you kind of get the idea here. Let me just look if fine-tune build at least. Yeah, I told you about the 1 hour and 16 or 1 hour and 10 minutes. I showed you the clock. And okay. So one other thing I want to mention here. So once you have your first rotation built, what I suggest is you create at least 2 other rotations that are similar to this hour, but has the power and all your categories in different positions. And I'm going to explain why. So once you have those, I have 4 rotations now. So in my schedule, what I can do is I can play rotation 1, 2, and 3, and I can alternate them. What that does is it spreads out and creates more randomness in your music selection. So if I was just playing the same rotation/clock every hour, then I'm not going to have the same dispersion and randomness. The more I change, and it doesn't have to be a big change, every hour doesn't have to be drastically different. You just want to move the positions a little bit so that it's not in the exact same order. Again, that's going to provide a great way to get some really cool randomness. So once you've created your 3 rotations, you would go in your schedule here and block it. So if you right click, you delete them, and then you select them up here, and I can add them here. So you kind of see how the schedule is made. So you want to kind of build your whole week and all the hours in the grid. And so that's basically how you schedule it. And again, stressing here, make at least 3 clocks and alternate them like that. And they don't have to be alternated the same way. It doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3. It could be, 1, 1, 3, 2, however you want to do it. But the more rotations you use and the more you mix it up, the more diversity you're going to add and the more randomness you're going to add to your playlists that get generated, or your real-time rotations. So again, I think that's kind of one of the magic formulas to getting a great station sound. We're going to move to the next topic now. Okay, again, once we've set up all our rotations and scheduled them in the scheduler, we can now generate playlists. So we're going to go to the playlist builder voice tracking screen, and we're going to hit the generate button. Okay. And so now I'm going to go ahead and generate, well, we'll just generate for 1 day for this example, just so you can see how that happens. So essentially, when this generates the 1 day, it's going to look at the schedule, see what rotations need to play for the day that it's generating for, and for each hour that it generates, it will use that clock / rotation. So I'm going to generate for 1 day. And basically, you'll see it go through all the hours, 0 through 24, and generate the playlist. Okay, once it's finished generating, if you have any broken rules or any warnings in the scheduler, this window will appear. So a lot of people just ignore this window, but it's kind of important. And so it's saying that my search depth was really high for my new music category. And that makes sense because I only added a few tracks, or I think maybe I didn't tag them properly. It's probably because I didn't tag them properly. And then I'll quickly just show you, we're going to go into this a little bit more later, but I'm going to click here to view my category report, and it shows me a down, thumbs down for my new music. And basically, it achieved 1 hour separation, but it had a peak search depth of 91%, which means it almost had to go through the whole list to find a matching track. Now, we can kind of look through some of our other categories here, and we'll see that we have much lower search depth. So on my high, it's only 1%. I can even look at my power. It only went 15% and achieved 4 hours separation. The average hour of separation for that category was 5 hours and 48 minutes. The category track count and the category unique artist. That's important because you have to remember, when we apply artist separation, if we have too many like artists, we could have hundreds of tracks. But if we don't have the same amount of unique artists, our library is very limited, and we have to make sure that we set our separation rules so that it can work with that. So that's basically the process of building that playlist. And then we're going to get into the category health and some things that you can do in the future here. While we're on the subject, the key thing to note here is we have our hours of separation. Let me get back to that. So I'm going to go to music, settings, and then my settings screen appears. And you can see that I have my hours of separation as 1 hour. So that means I'm allowed to play the same artist every 1 hour. And you can do title separation, although I really don't recommend title separation unless you're doing Christmas music or anything that requires you to block out. If you have a library or a genre that has a lot of the same titles, you can put it there. But really, I would suggest leaving that at 0, because generally, if you don't have a lot of similar titles, it adds processing to the music search, and it's just not worth it. So again, we set our hours of separation at 1, and that was the global separation. And we'll talk more about hours of separation per category in just a minute. Again, I just wanted to show you where we set our artist separation. Again, the audience pleaser here, you generally want to turn it off. Unless you have a large internet station with a large audience, then there's another video explaining the audience pleaser. Yeah. So we'll go into some of the more advanced scheduling features now. Okay, the first advanced feature I want to talk about is called iPass. So iPass is basically multi-pass music scheduling. The way iPass works is, depending on the priority you assign for each category, those songs will be picked first. So let me give you an example. If you have a power category and you put it at priority 1, and then all other categories are placed either at 0 or a lower or a higher number, then what will happen is that power category will automatically achieve artist separation bias, meaning that all your power tracks will override and get advantage for artist separation. So again, many of you understand multi-pass scheduling, music scheduling, and we call it iPass. So you basically check that, and then each category can have an iPass priority. So I'm going to go ahead and on my power category, I'm going to select category type and more. And you'll see that my iPass priority for my power category is 1. Again, what that means is Nextkast will schedule all the power categories for however long you're generating for, if it's multiple days or 30 days or whatever, and then it will fill in the others, meaning that the category or the power category with priority 1 will get the highest advantage of artist separation. And again, you can do up to 5, so I pass priority 1 through 5. You can assign it here. You just type it in, and then it's set. So that is explaining iPass. So the next feature I want to talk about is day segment separation. Now, I want to be very cautious in recommending this because this generally works best if you have a really large music library. What the intended purpose of this is to set songs to get to all your hosts, your VT host. So let's say you have 3 VT hosts, you can separate their time of day that they are on. So what I basically do is I put my mouse over each of these squares and I hit 1 here for these. So I'm assigning that as day segment 1, and then this could be day segment 2, and this is day segment 3. And what the Nextkast scheduler will do is it will make sure that it gets filled into either one of these hours on segment 1, one of the hours in segment 2, and then one of the hours in segment 3 before it gets back to 1 again. So that just evenly distributes music tracks if you have multiple voice track hosts. And that is not a common requirement, but this can be used for other things as well. So essentially, you can set up to 6 day segments, and that will make sure that that track plays in all the segments before it gets repeated in a segment. It's a little bit of a complex idea, but again, I wanted to briefly go over it. You basically enable day segment separation by checking there, and then you set the segments up here in this window. I'd also like to mention hours of separation per category. So one of the new ways you can do that is if I go to my song pick errors and I click my category health report, I can click on my power, and I don't know if you notice here, but if I click on any of my other categories, they have the 1 hour separation applied, right? So that is my global artist separation. But for my power, I set it to 4. So I basically manually just typed in 4 and pressed enter here. And that basically overrides it. So my artist separation for my power category, because I have 5 hours average artist separation, I set it higher. So it's going to separate out those artists more for my power category than other categories. And you can customize that for each one. Keep in mind, the more custom you do this, the more you have to be aware of how everything interacts. And that's what I was talking about in the beginning of this video, that you can set up so many rules that your brain doesn't really know what the end result is going to be. And the category health report is a big part of that. I wanted to put the information there. So because we can't visualize it, this report gives you very concise data that will help you adjust those separation rules. But in addition, next up, I want to show you debug mode. And debug mode allows you to test your rules and see what types of playlists are generated, and then iterate through them and then apply the best rules to get the absolute best result. We were just talking about hours of separation per category, and I showed you how to set it in the category health window. But you can also right click on a category and go to category type, and in the broadcast version and on-air version, you'll see that there's an artist repeat override here, and there's also a title repeat override. So each category can have a custom artist repeat and title repeat setting. So next up, I'm going to cover debug mode. Okay, if you were watching earlier in the video, when we generated a playlist, we had our new music category, and it had a warning for search depth. So I actually went to go look through the category, and I noticed that all my related artists had fields filled in, and that was from the music provider. So again, it's the importance of making sure your metadata is correct is crucial. But I did want to show you something really cool. I mean, you look at this, it's amazing how it's breaking up our related artists. So even something as tricky as this one, it's breaking it up for you automatically. So that's going to save some people, depending on your format, a lot of time. So it breaks out cat dealers and this one. Sorry about the music. It's a little bit EDM-ish, but yeah, so I just wanted to show you again how the related artists get automatically put in there. And so while doing the checkup here, I realized that my new music category all had the same related artist from the vendor of the music. So once I fix that, I think that's going to fix our problem. So what I wanted to show you now is the amazing debug mode. And what this allows you to do is test your separation rules and create some hypothetical playlists. Actually, it actually does create the playlist, but it hypothetically plays them out, so the data is searchable. So I'm going to walk you through that now. So you're going to go to your settings, and you're going to go to reset reshuffle, and you're going to right click instead of left click. So when you right click, it's going to ask you, do you want to go into debug mode? And I'm going to go ahead and say yes. It does a little bit of magic here. And once this is reset, I'm going to go ahead and create and generate playlists for 5 days. And then I'll show you the report, and I'll show you the result, and then we'll go from there. We'll analyze it. So once that's all reset and ready to go into debug mode, I go to my playlist builder screen. I'm going to go to generate, and I'm going to go to select 5 days. So I'm going to go ahead and let it generate for 5 days using the rules that we have in there now. And we'll see what results we come up with. And I'll show you how to analyze the data that comes from this. I'll show you how to analyze the playlist, and then we can decide how to adjust our rules to get a better result if we need to. If not, we're going to keep it the same. So we'll be right back. Okay, so my playlists have finished generating, and you'll see that my playlist folders are here. When I click on any of the dates that are generated, it will show all the hours, and then I can load them in and I can look through them. So I can just basically look through them. So that's some people, actually, I've met a lot of people that can do that. They can just kind of look and say, oh yeah, I'm happy with the result. But there's more help here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to settings. We're going to go to song pick errors. And luckily we didn't have any song pick errors that generation time, which means it did not have any warnings or anything. And so then I can go to category view or category health view. And then again, I can look at the statistics here. My search depth on my classic category is really low. And again, what I'm showing you is a very large library. So depending on your library, as you get tighter with less tracks, say for instance on a top 40 format, your search depths are going to be a lot higher. And you'll see my power category occurs quite often, and I have an artist separation of 4 hours. So my search depth goes 17%, but still very low and very acceptable. Now, if everything turns out good and you know, you don't have any warnings and you get all thumbs up, then you know that your rules are set good. And if you want to, and that now if you want to tighten them up, you can do it a little bit at a time and then run the debug once again. Again, to reset it, you'll go to settings and you right click on reset reshuffle. It'll ask you to put it in debug mode, and then you can do that. Now, finally, you can go here if you know a song that you're looking for and see how often it played. I'm just going to type in David here. Let's see. Oh, I have to go for tomorrow through, I did a week. So we're going to go to here, search. Okay. I'm going to look for stay. If I can type here. Kind of wanted to show you. So here I can see where that track played, right? So for all the dates that I scheduled it, I can see all the times that it played, hypothetically. Now, again, this didn't play in the future, but because I put it in debug mode, it will kind of, and you see here, I have on my 8 o'clock hour, I see it's kind of playing close to the same time. So depending on that, what rotation is in that 8 o'clock hour, you want to alter that rotation to see if you can get it to spread out a little bit more. Let's see. If I have another artist here. Let's try low. Okay, so this one, you can see this one spread out a little bit better. And again, so you can analyze your tracks and start adjusting your rules based on what information comes up during this search and during the debug. So thanks for sticking with this very long video. I wanted to show you as much as I could possibly about our music scheduling system, and obviously we're going to continue to improve it. If you're a scheduling expert, I'd love to hear from you. Contact me and we can talk more about it. And I love taking big challenges here, and music scheduling is one of those. So again, thanks for checking us out. We are Nextkast. We were discussing the on-air version and broadcast version of Nextkast, all the scheduling capabilities. Thanks for checking it out.